Here's what I mean by this term walking in circles. Whenever we all know someone who has had the same aspiration for years. They haven't hit the aspiration. And in a lot of ways, the reason they haven't hit the aspiration is because when you observe them, you notice that they haven't necessarily changed anything. They still have the same habits, the same way of being. There's nothing that they're necessarily doing that will shift the outcome of their life. And in many ways, we'll say they're at a standstill, right? This person is at a standstill, but they're not. Because all of us are busy doing something. They're busy doing something. And the reason I say walking in circles is because what I'm finding is so many of us are busy. So many of us are consumed. I mean, like filled to capacity. One of the things we're going to talk about a bit more in detail is capacity. So many of us are reaching our capacity. But when we look at the outcome of what it is that we're creating, we don't see results. Why is that? It may be because you are walking in circles. Now, I'm not saying literally, okay? But what I'm saying is that you're walking in circles in your life. And so the things that you're busy doing are things that are not creating progress. The things that you are busy doing are things that aren't necessarily taking you towards your goals. The things that you're busy doing are more so based on your need to survive than the ability, the natural ability that you have to thrive. Now, where did I get this from? Last week, I talked about Seth Godin, right? Him being a virtual mentor. If you missed that, you have to watch the first part of last week's show. As a matter of fact, I see some of you all popping up. Kofi, I just talked about you, brother. You just missed it. But I was just saying, it was so good to see you yesterday, you and your family. But I got this from Seth Godin, okay? Seth Godin is a virtual mentor of mine. And he wrote a book called Poke the Box. And something that he said in Poke the Box, he talked about this concept of walking in circles. And in this piece, Seth recited some research. And this research had been done by a doctor called Jan Salman. And this doctor is a member of the Max Planck Institute for Biological Cybernetics. I mean, one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit today is psycho-cybernetics. I forgot the book, too. That's all right. I'll bring it next week. But so we'll have to pause that. But so Dr. Jan Salman, who did this research, part of the research that was done revealed that what happens to us when we don't have a map, when we don't have a compass, and when we don't have landmarks to determine where we are, that what happens to us if we're lost in the forest or we're lost in the desert and there's no North Star, there's no sun to guide us, is that as human beings, we have the tendency to literally walk in a circle. Now, you've seen movies before where the people are lost. Maybe they don't have access to the stars. They don't have access to the sun. They don't have access to a map. And even in the movies, we'll notice that there's a scene where they come to a place where they say, I think we've been here before. And then there's a look of despair on the actors' faces as a result of that. I think we've been here before. I think we're walking in circles. And so even in the stories that we write, the movies that we watch, this concept of walking in circles is something that is dealt with. But my question today is, how often are we dealing with this concept in our real lives? Like, am I making progress? Am I truly making progress, or am I walking in circles? When it comes to my health and my well-being, am I walking in circles? Did last month I lose 10 pounds? I had a phenomenal month, and this month I just gained it all back, right? And by the way, we rationalize these type of things. We say to ourselves, well, July, we ate a lot of barbecue, and, nothing happens in May and June, but July is the summer, and it had all the festivals, and I was drinking and I was eating, and that's why I gained the weight back. So we rationalize it, right? Because we don't necessarily feel like we're lost. But if you see this trend in your life where you gain weight, you lose weight, you gain weight, you lose weight, or your health gets better, then it gets bad. Your health gets better, then it gets bad. I would have you consider that this may be an area of life where you are literally walking in circles. Are we walking in circles in our relationships? I mean, you've been in the same relationship for years, and you all have the same exact challenges all the time. You can almost predict when you're gonna have the challenge. You know that every holiday season, you guys are gonna have the same fights. You know that the new year, you're gonna have the same fights. Are you walking in circles? Maybe financially, you're walking in circles. For the last 10 years, you've been making the same amount of money. You've been bringing in the same thing. You have the same financial opportunities. You have the same financial goals. You have the same credit card debt. You've been paying down the same bills. And every time you get it down, something comes up in your life where you find yourself making another bad decision, and you turn around and you're right back in the position that you tried to pull yourself out of. Are you walking in circles? Maybe it's in your work where, this is your third job this decade, and you got the same complaint. You got the same boss that doesn't like you, right? Different boss, same thing. Right? You're doing the same type of work that you knew you didn't like 10 years ago. You feel the same way on Monday mornings. Are you walking in circles? Now, Dr. Jan Soman did this research. And one of the things that he shared in the research is that regardless of how hard we try to walk in a straight line, to get out of the woods, to get out of the hot desert, to get out of that financial situation, to change our health, that somehow we always end up right back where we started. We literally walk in circles. And so what he said after that is, don't trust your senses, because even though you might think you're walking in a straight line, you're not. All right, so you might say, well, Linal, what are you getting at here? What do you mean don't trust your senses? What I'm saying is, at some point, you got to stop trusting the thing that you've been trusting that's not producing results for you. If you've been trusting survival, like the push, the grind ain't working for you. The grind is not going to help you create the future that you really want to live. Again, the topic today, if you're just joining us, is how to create your future. So you're not creating that future. You're walking in circles. So this got me to thinking, because for most practical reasons, life doesn't come with a map. And I say practical because there's a lot of guides out there, right? If we want to pay attention to those guides. So for most practical reasons, life doesn't come with a map. And we're not born with a user's guide or an instruction manual. When we were blessed with my son a year ago, We didn't get an instruction manual specifically created for him. So the most that I can do is I can pass on to my son the lessons that I've learned. But what if I haven't learned how to get out of the circle? What I will effectively do is pass on that same way of being, that same level of confusion, that same consumption of busyness with no progress. I'll pass that right on to my children, because that's the manual I'm following. So at some point, we've got to kind of take a step back and begin to ask ourselves, what is my map? Like, am I willing to step outside of how I've been doing things? Am I willing to create change, which is a bad word, by the way? It's funny how many people will say, change is good. But as soon as you bring some change into their life, they get upset with you. They don't want that change. Don't bring me that change. Change is good over there, but I don't want change over here. But change is necessary to thrive. It is necessary. So the question becomes, what is it that we need to change? If we find ourselves in this circle, we find ourselves always busy but not making progress, what is it that you need to change? For many of us, we're living life like that hamster in the wheel. We're running. Some of us are running fast, but we're not making any progress. And I want you to think about something. That if you have the ability to run that fast in that wheel, what would happen if you got out the wheel and you started actually running towards your goal, running with the purpose? Like, what could you create if you put that same amount of energy into getting towards the goal, but actually shifting and changing up what needs to be changed, what needs to be shifted? So that brings me to a couple of questions. Because most of us have ambitions and endeavors that seemingly, I say seemingly, get left up to circumstance. And the reason I say they get left up to circumstance is because most of us, unfortunately, we stop. We stop as soon as a situation becomes a barrier to where we want to go. We run up against it. So I want to give you another mental picture of this. Because with a lot of us, we have a goal. And you'll say, well, Linal, I've been running towards the goal. I've been going after the goal. I've been focused on the goal for 10 years. I've been listening to you. You tell me I'm going to encounter resistance, and I've encountered the resistance, but I don't necessarily know what to do with the resistance. And so what happens is we run into a wall, boom, and then we turn around and we retreat. Then we get re-inspired, and then we run right back into the same wall, boom, and then we retreat. I mean, if that's not a circle, I don't know what is. And today what I want to talk about is breaking through. Breaking through, because one of the major components, one of the major responsibilities that we have when we're creating our life is the ability to not just have a goal, but actually create breakthrough results upon reaching the goal. And I'm going to talk about how to do that in a moment. So whether by beating the odds with obstinate persistence or by calling out and reaching for help, progress can be on the other side. So my question for reflection: what do you do when you are up against progress? Progress is eluding you, is another way to ask it. Like, what are you doing when you realize that your progress is eluding you? Like, what do you do? Like what type of thought process do you go through? You pause? Do you stop and get help? And have you considered taking the time to draw a map or identify your North Star? Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to give you a perfect example for me. Some years ago, I began to realize that I kept running up against the same thing. I'm running up against the same thing. Now, I had a North Star. What is my North Star? My North Star is my purpose, right? That's my purpose. So first and foremost, let's get one thing very clear. If you don't know your purpose, it is very likely that you are running in circles. You're walking in circles. And that is one of the number one reasons that progress, that success eludes many of us, because there's a lack of purpose. Now, I talk about this ad nauseum, but so many people are not taking their purpose seriously. Like, what is your purpose? And by the way, I get that it doesn't all sink in at the same time. I get that. I was having a conversation with my mom, and she's listening right now. And she was saying, Linal, I've been listening to you for a while. And I was listening, this is a month or so ago. She's like, I was listening this past week and something clicked. Boom. I get it, right? I mean, this is one of the reasons why inputs are so important, right? Because what are you listening to? Because at some point, if you don't get it, it will click. If you keep listening. If you keep listening, something to happen, right? Something to, boom, it'll click. You'll see that point that you've been missing. But one of the points I want to drive home that you cannot miss is the power of purpose. I know it sounds cliche. I get it. I get that so many people talk about it. I get that you can go online right now and 1,000 people are trying to help you find your purpose. I get that. And 1,000 people are trying to help your purpose because they understand the importance of it. The question is, are you willing to take a chance and actually begin to create a strategy around fully understanding and walking in your purpose? So let me pause right there, because one of the things that has blown my mind. So back in 2015, I started doing workshops helping people distinguish their purpose. So I would have a conversation like this on the radio, and I would say, if you want to find out your purpose on the planet, then come to the workshop. And people would reach out to me. And here are some of the things, here are some of the objections I heard. Okay. By the way, I was charging $100 for the course. And by the way, grossly undercharging. Because if I do a workshop today, it's not going to be $100. So if you went, good for you. Okay. And honestly, I believe I was doing you all a disservice by only charging $100. Because what happens is, I believe in some ways in our mind, we say, well, I could do that whenever. That's not that important. If it's only $100, I'll do the next one. That's not that big of a deal. Because we begin to kind of balance things out in our minds based on the value, right? But I was giving $100,000 worth of information in that workshop. Now, how can I say that and be so sure of it? Because my purpose has generated for me well over 6 figures. Distinguishing my purpose, living aligned to my purpose. Now, I'm sure some people have already turned me off. Like, oh, here we go. This is a purpose show. This is not a purpose show. Purpose is just one of the major components for creating your future. Just one. Okay? It's your North Star. So let's talk about walking in circles, right? That's how I opened up. If if I'm walking in circles, it's because I don't have a North Star. And your purpose serves as your North Star. Everything I've done in my life has been aligned with let me correct. Most of the things I've done in my life have been aligned with my purpose. I've taken on some activities that weren't aligned. But for the most part, the major decisions that I've had to create or make in my life have been with purpose. Why is that important? Because I wouldn't be where I am right now if I hadn't made that my North Star. If on my journey, when it came time to make a decision, do I go right or do I go left? Often what felt counterintuitive was making the decision aligned with my purpose. Now, let's talk about that. Because if without a North Star, our propensity, right, based on research as human beings, without a North Star, without something to guide us, the natural propensity is to walk in circles. So let's say that I'm walking with a tinge to the right. And this tinge to the right is what has me walking in circles. But I have a North Star, which is my purpose. So then I come to a fork in the road. Intuitively, I'm likely going to want to go right. But when I slow down, stop, and reflect and align the decision with my purpose, the North Star will likely say, no, the right decision is to go left. And that's going to be a tough decision because everything in me, right, there's no resistance internally to going right. Because intuitively, based on research, we walk in circles. I want to go right. But purpose, the North Star says, that's not the right move. You should go left. Perfect example. I don't think Perry would mind me saying it. So Perry was at my wife's workshop yesterday. And she was giving us an example of a situation that happened in her life where she was a journalist. She was working for a paper. She was writing. And she was doing 2 days out the week on the radio. Okay. And she was passionate about the work that she was doing on the radio. She felt like the work she was doing on the radio was aligned with her purpose. And she was at a particular event that she was covering for her newspaper job as a journalist. And her boss was there. And he overheard her tell someone that, wow, this is something I'm going to have to talk about on the radio. And he was livid because he only wanted her to work in one lane, right? He wanted all of her attention to be going on the journalistic work that she was doing. And so that Monday when she got to work, she shared how he came to her and he gave her an ultimatum. He said, either you all here and you leave that radio job, or you quit and you do radio. Now, mind you what I said, and she stressed this, that the journalism job was how she was making her money. That's how most of her money was coming in. And she was only doing 2 days a week on the radio. She said in that moment, she knew in her heart that radio was where she was supposed to be. She gave her 2-week notice. Most of us wouldn't do that because most of us are more concerned about our survival than walking aligned with our purpose. And the reason most of us are concerned with our survival is because when it comes to the big picture of our life, when it comes to what it is that we're supposed to do in this life, we're not clear. And when you are clear, you are willing to make decisions that don't necessarily make sense. I'll give you another example. This comes from my own life. I remember the week before I left corporate America, one of the mature men, brothers at the company came to me and he started to acknowledge me. And he said, Linal, I'm so proud of you. What you've achieved as a young black man in this company is amazing. And he had, by the way, he had a vision for my life, right? I see you becoming the CEO. I see you taking us into the future. And I'm proud of that, brother, right? And I'm sitting here listening to this man, knowing that I'm walking into my last week. He doesn't know that. The company hasn't communicated that. I know I'm going into my last week. I know that despite the amount of money I was making in corporate America, despite how comfortable the position was, despite the comfort of getting a paycheck, a good paycheck every 2 weeks, health care and benefits, 401k, pension, bonus, all of these things, despite all of that, I knew that based on my purpose, based on the map for my life, that it was time to go. It was time to cut left, even though right felt good. That's the decision I made. If I hadn't made that decision, you likely wouldn't be listening to me on the airwaves right now. It felt counterintuitive. After I left, and I was struggling in my business as an entrepreneur, I was struggling to get hired. And people, not people, but companies were calling, saying, we hear that you're available. We hear that you're open right now. We have the position of global head of diversity over here. We have this position over there. And we're interested in you in taking that. The decision remained the same because the map doesn't change. The map said, stay left. And because I could see in my mind the vision for my life, I stayed left. And boy, am I happy. Boy, am I happy that I did it. Did it feel good at the time? No. Was I concerned at the time? Yes. Did I have peace? Yes. Why did I have peace? Because when you know that you're following the map and the map is taking you towards the destination, regardless of what's happening on the journey right through there, regardless of what's happening on the trail, you know you're headed in the right direction. So I can't be concerned with what's on the trail right now. I can't be concerned with the toils of the journey right here because I'm headed to a destination. I'm headed to a place that is aligned with my purpose because I refuse to walk in circles. So the question today is, who's guiding you? What's guiding you? And if you know your purpose, then who are you supposed to be guiding? Because a lot of us are playing small ball when it comes to the work we're doing. I'm going to tell you something. This is the kind of leadership, conversations like this. This is the kind of leadership. This is the kind of conversation that is critical. It is effective and it's rare. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, Linal, man, I don't know my purpose. I'm ready to know my purpose. Then I have an online course, $197 that you can purchase at murdermediocrity.com. You can go there. You can purchase the course. It's 10 modules, 21 lessons across 10 modules that if you concentrate and you take on a module a day, in 10 days, you'll know your purpose. And any questions that you have while you're taking the course, you leave them in the comment area. I'll respond to you in 24 hours. That's my commitment to you as you go on your journey for purpose. So I wanted to share that because somebody might be like, well, I don't know my purpose. I don't even know how to begin. That's how you begin. Now, let me address the $197. Because a lot of us have money objections. And I'm not just talking about money objections for this course. I'm talking about money objections for anything that you know you should be investing in. Because we'll sit back and say with our mouths, oh, I'm investing in myself. Oh, I'm going to take myself to the next level. But then as soon as the money conversation comes in, we got all these reasons why we can't. All these reasons why it won't work. Man, you don't understand my situation. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're not willing to invest in yourself, if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, to go after something that will transform your life, you will never, I'm not mincing my words, you will never reach your potential. At some point, you got to be willing to get uncomfortable. You've got to be willing to do whatever it takes. I've had people tell me, man, that's just too much. That's too, I can't do it. And then I see them a week later, they got a brand new suit on or a brand new pair of shoes on. And I'm not telling you not to take care of yourself. What I'm saying is we got to get to a point where we're clear on what really matters. We're clear on what it means to truly invest and truly be uncomfortable so we can reach that point in our life that really matters to us so we can stop walking in circles. And so that becomes the question. Are you so tired of walking in circles that you're willing to do whatever it takes? Purpose.